Stop me if you heard this before, but the Boston Bruins lose 3-2 in overtime to the Ottawa Senators. The Bruins losing this season is becoming a common occurrence, and what is becoming more common is how it's happening. On a night where Ullmark was back in the building and the fans gave him a standing ovation, the Bruins decided to drop another stinker. As always, I'm going to walk you through the highs and lows of the Boston Bruins game, and this was far too many lows. And honestly, they sucked. So buckle up, Bruins fans. I'm here to give you the latest info on your beloved Boston Bruins. If you've been liking my Bruins content, please leave me a like and subscribe. If you've already done so, thank you. And let's get into it. Before puck drop, the Bruins and the NHL were making this all about Ullmark versus Swayman, and you couldn't help but see a video after video of the famed goalie hug. We even got to see a semi-goalie hug right before the game between Swayman and Ullmark. The game ended up being Swayman versus the Ottawa Senators because he seemed to be the only player to show up for the game. Before the game, Montgomery spoke to the media and for some reason sounded a bit defensive, which tells me there is some cracks in the armor, and he's hearing it from the front office.
I know you like to change it up.
Yeah, have I changed it up much this year? Yeah. I think I've been more consistent with the lines and we've had less production, to be honest. I left Lindholm and Pasternak together with Zacha for the first 8 of the first 10 games, and then I moved Marchand there. But yes, I mean, there was chemistry. The same thing as when after the Toronto game, left those lines together. And then the only time I really went to the blender was in Carolina. And last game, I went to the blender. Those were the 2 games that I felt I went to the blender. In game, guys aren't performing, then I'm always going to make moves. That's, I think, what you're supposed to do as a coach. But if we're going to build chemistry, then we got to leave them together.
Good news on the power play is you get a lot of opportunity. Yesterday, you had the most opportunities in the league, in terms of whole number, not putting it in the net. Do you feel it's approaching it? You're on the cusp of getting it, or still fighting?
Still fighting it. It's not fluid. It's, the entries aren't the way we would want to, and then just guys knowing what they're going to do with the puck, whether it's shooting or passing it, that next play speed is not where it needs to be right now.
And you're including just basic passing speed as well, yes?
Yeah, that's actually what I mean more than the shooting speed, deciding to shoot.
Ullmark, does it help the guys having experience practicing against him, or does that sort of go out the window once the game starts?
Goes both ways. He knows our shooters. He knows their tendencies as well. So it's just an even thing. In game, you're just playing off your instincts. If you know a goalie is weak, say 5-hole or high glove. Like when you're coming down, the chances that you have very seldom do you actually be like, okay, I'm supposed to go high glove. It's too late by then. Unless you're, a natural goal scorer whose instincts are like, okay, his pad's leaning this way, I can shoot across the green the other way. And that's why there's so few real goal scorers in the league.
When it comes to Senators, besides Ullmark, what jumps off the page at?
Besides what?
Besides Linus, what jumps off the page at you about the Senators?
How good they are in the offensive zone. They're a real dynamic team, I think, in the offensive zone. I think their structure is really good in the offensive zone. I think their defensemen and the way their defensemen activate and skate in the offensive zone creates havoc. And we're going to have to be really good in our defensive structure.
That's sort of the same thing with their power play. They have one of the higher ranked power plays.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a lot of movement, a lot of attacking the blue paint, whether it's shots or bodies going there. Real good power play.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What's keeping Frederick from finding the success that you believe in him?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in Trent Frederick. He's awesome to work with. He's a hardworking, conscientious, caring young man. And I just think that, when things don't go well, he cares about the team. So he cares about, and not only his own personal success, but the lack of team success affects him. So that when that happens, players sometimes think too much. And when we think too much, we're slow. It's not just him. You look at our team, it's, not lately. I think we're starting to see real good signs in our transitional game. And I thought Trent's best game transitionally, since the first game of the year was last game.
He defended his line juggling this year, which I guess is a choice. Anyone with eyes can see how many times he's put his lines in a blender this season, and then he admits he needs to build chemistry. His press conference before the game truly baffled me, and for the first time, I was thinking maybe it's time for a replacement behind the bench. If the head coach isn't seeing what everyone else is seeing, then we have a disconnect somewhere. I will get into the breakdown of each period, but wanted to touch on two goaltenders in the game because as Bruins fans, we're very familiar with Linus Ullmark. During the TV timeout, the Boston Bruins did an amazing tribute video for Ullmark showing his accomplishments in Boston, and the fans gave him a standing ovation. A lot of fans seem to think Ullmark isn't here this season because of Swayman, and that's only sort of true. The Bruins front office chose to move Ullmark last season, and that was because they wanted to help in the playoffs, and they knew they would be only starting Swayman over him. Once they went to Ullmark, who had a no-trade clause, there was no looking back and had to move him this offseason. They 100% could have kept both of them this season, even after signing Swayman, but wouldn't have been able to sign Zadorov, which when I look at it now, I'd be okay with. They wouldn't have been able to re-sign Ullmark, but they would have at least had both of them for this season. Mind you, Korpisalo has been fine. Ullmark, unfortunately, hasn't played all too well in Ottawa this season, but that has a lot to do with injuries. In 8 games, he's had 3 wins and an .890 save percentage. He didn't even play well last night either, but the Bruins gifted him a win anyways. I'm sure he had a ton of money on the board, so good for him. The time between the first shot Ullmark faced in overtime from the Bruins and the last shot he faced in the second was 1 hour and 7 minutes. More on that later. Swayman, on the other hand, had to hold the fort all night, and the Bruins had no answer for Ottawa's forechecks as they were peppering Swayman with shots all night. Swayman faced 34 shots, which is more than half of the 16 shots Ullmark faced the whole game. The difference between this game and the one against the Leafs the other night was the Bruins didn't face a goalie that stood on his head, and they scored 2 goals. Ottawa outplayed the Bruins at every level, except for hits, because once again, the Bruins out-hit their opponent. I'm at a point where I want nothing to do with the Big Bad Bruins because the Big Bad Bruins stink in the modern NHL. All their hits are taking them out of plays and causing opportunities to go the other way most of the time. The Bruins are out hitting their opponents night after night, but not scoring goals. So what does that even matter? We can't even blame the loss on undisciplined play as the Bruins only took 3 penalties. But of course, one of them was by Nikita Zadorov. You can't even blame the goaltending last night, even though my comment section, which will, and that's fine. I think it's the rite of passage for some Bruins fans to always hang a loss on a goalie. It's just what some of us do, and honestly, that's fine. The first period, the Ottawa Senators looked like they've been shot out of a cannon, and were first on every puck at both sides of the ice. The Bruins seemed to have no answer for Ottawa's forecheck and got caught running around most of the time. You would see the puck going back and forth, but it was Ottawa generating most of the chances. The Bruins would enter Ottawa's zone, but like 9 times out of 10, they would cough up the puck or dump it in the corner only to have Ottawa get to the puck first. It was the same in the Bruins zone as Ottawa's coming out of the corner with the puck almost every time, and the Bruins had like a very hard time clearing the zone. The Bruins ended the night with 21 giveaways to Ottawa, who only had 12. The Bruins defense caused 14 of those giveaways, which is more than all of the Ottawa Senators combined. Late in the first period, the Bruins take a penalty, which is on Elias Lindholm, which he is called for interference, but when you watch it, Zadorov causes the 2 players to collide, but nonetheless, Lindholm is in the box. The Senators this season are 31% on the power play and have the 4th best power play in the league. The Bruins, on the other hand, have a PK that is currently ranked 24th in the league, so you can only guess what would happen. I'm sure before the game, Montgomery spoke to the guys and told them to stay out of the box because it will cost them. And it did. Zadorov gets caught chasing behind the net, collapsing. Now there's 3 Bruins behind the goal line. Marchand notices, tries to cover Zadorov, but Josh Norris is left so wide open in front of the net, he could have made a sandwich, and it's 1-0 Ottawa. Up until that point, the PK wasn't bad, and there was only 8 seconds left in the period. If they go into the period without getting scored on, I doubt Ottawa would have scored at the top of the period. It always takes a team a bit to get going at the start of a period when they have a power play. The Bruins start the second down 1-0 because of a bonehead mistake, which has been a theme for the night. Not much had changed in the second period though, as yes, the puck goes back and forth, but it's Ottawa getting to the loose pucks first. It's Ottawa with the ozone time. Boston Bruins is applying pressure, but Ottawa seems to have an answer every time. Not too long into the second period, Pastrnak makes a great move to keep the puck in the zone and makes a nice pass to Zacha in front of the net, who takes a backhand shot, and it's 1-1. Zacha scoring in his second straight game was nice to see, and Pastrnak once again is generating the offense for this team, but is still being a pass-first guy. Seconds later, Hampus Lindholm drives to the net with a puck. Brazeau gets the rebound and passes to a wide-open Marchand, who scores, and it's 2-1. The momentum is going towards the Bruins, or at least you would think that it is. Marchand with his 290th even-strength goal, putting him second all-time in the Boston Bruins history behind Johnny Bucyk with 384. This would be the end of the Bruins playing well, though, and if you think about it, they only played well for less than a minute of the game. Ottawa would press and apply pressure on the Bruins, causing giveaway after giveaway, making for Swayman having to come up with big saves like the one on Tkachuk's breakaway. If it wasn't for Swayman this game, it would have gotten out of hand. Later in the period, Zadorov gets his team-leading 12th penalty of the season. At least he's leading at something. The Bruins killing the penalty, but come out of it even flat more than they did before and look lost at times. Ottawa is entering the Bruins zone at will, and the Bruins have no answer. Coyle wins the faceoff, but Ottawa takes the puck away from the Bruins and skates up the ice. It seemed to be a pattern all night. The Bruins would win the draw and then not gain possession. Zadorov becomes a moving screen, and Amadio is able to get a stoppable shot to go by Swayman, and we have a tie game. At first, I was like, Swayman should have had that one, but after watching the replay, you can tell Zadorov once again collapses on his netminder, making it impossible for him to see anything. You know Zadorov takes responsibility as he comes to the bench and explodes his stick in frustration. This seems to be a pattern with him, where he doesn't know where he is on the ice and screens his own goalie. He did this with Korpisalo just last game against Calgary when Kadri used him as a screen to score a goal. Once again, the Bruins give up a late goal and the period ends and it's 2-2. The third period for the Bruins is a nightmare because at 15:53 of the second period is when David Pastrnak would get the last shot for the Boston Bruins in regulation. The third period was embarrassing for Bruins fans, or at least it should be because we cheer for this team. They stunk and couldn't do anything right. Ottawa outplayed them at every level and had their way with them. Once again, Swayman keeps them in the game, coming up with big save after big save, while Ullmark at the other end must have just been bored. It was hard to watch because you would see a lane and they wouldn't go hard to the net, and they decided to just try and cycle the puck with hopes of a big chance. It made no sense to me as Pastrnak had a wide open chance and elects to pass, which gets intercepted and the puck ends up going the other way, and Swayman has to stand tall. Nothing happened in the third period except the Senators hemmed the Bruins in their own end the whole time. We go to overtime, and Montgomery once again starts the Lindholms with Marchand, which worked against Calgary. The overtime doesn't last long as the Bruins have a big chance, but Elias Lindholm, who can't buy a goal, shoots it at Ullmark. Instead of the gaping hole, he just shoots it directly at him, and the rebound pops out, sending Ottawa up the ice on a 2-on-1. Brady Tkachuk elects to shoot instead of the pass, and it's all over. I'm thinking Swayman hesitated here and was anticipating the pass, and I felt he should have had this one. But then again, it's Brady Tkachuk, and honestly, he played it perfectly and rightfully. The Ottawa Senators win the game, and honestly, they should have. They outplayed the Bruins. The Bruins somehow, though, move up to third in the division with the loss because of the loser point in overtime, and now are 500 on the season with a 7-7-2 record. The overtime goal was one of them where I thought Swayman should have had it, but he got them to OT, as I said. Before, the goaltending hasn't really been an issue for the Bruins this season, but people seem to think it is, but it really isn't. The Bruins right now have a -12 goal differential, and their defense has been terrible this season, and frankly, one of the worst in the league. What was supposed to be a strength is a huge weakness. I would honestly sit Zadorov for a game, and hopefully it's a wake-up call. Montgomery's been focusing on the forwards when his defense has been the issue all season. After the game, Montgomery spoke to the media, and for the first time sounded honestly defeated, like a coach that doesn't have an answer.
Talk about it, figure out why, we look at it, what we're doing sports science-wise, we'll come up with answers. You know, right now, I don't have an answer for you.
Do you think conditioning or endurance or anything like that has been an issue?
We thought so during camp, but we don't think so anymore.
Jim, do you question whether they're listening?
No, I don't question that.
So what's preventing it from the message getting through?
It's up for you guys to figure that out and come up with a reason. We just weren't good enough. You guys can write what you guys think is the malaise on the team and what's going wrong. We're just not playing good enough.
He once again sounded defensive and made me think he's reading what's being said about him in the media right now. He sounds like a coach that knows he could be fired sooner rather than later. Not to say this is the right call, but this is the reality of the situation in the NHL. Montgomery had to answer far too many questions about whether the guys are listening to him or not. He says they are, but from what we see on the ice, there's no way they are. I don't know what the answer is because the top two lines are the only ones generating offense, and the Bruins defense is a liability on the ice. The Bruins special teams are non-existent, and the worst I've seen in years. The power play with McAvoy on the point is not working, but for some reason, this is the one line he doesn't throw into a blender. All I know is if this keeps up, Montgomery is going to be a turkey drop come American Thanksgiving because there's no way the Bruins front office is going to continue to let this happen. Sweeney has been on the road scouting for Team Canada, which has left Cam at the helm with the team, and we know that he's big on making rash decisions. I want to hear from you, though, in the comments. You let me know what you think the core problem to this Boston Bruins team is. That's a wrap on today's video. To stay up to date on all the news surrounding the Boston Bruins, please subscribe and drop me a like. If news breaks surrounding the Boston Bruins, be sure to check out the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, thank you, and I'll see you next time.